Hello and welcome to a new episode of Random Nintendo, episode number, Jason?
Wow, great intro. 254. You got far there, Angel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just wanted the number. I didn't need any help on the rest of it.
Okay.
I mean, you
Today
did get the
we're
number,
talking
though.
about...
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. No, I didn't get the number.
Oh,
Oh,
correct.
yeah,
Correct.
he didn't get the number.
Correct.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got a episode, I believe it's called The Big Picture. Jason
Sure
said
is.
that, I was playing Pokemon Snap, and you take pictures, and he said there was some big Pokemon in there, so he liked the name. And I'm
I like how you're telling
"Oh,
it like you're a little kid that told about something that happened at school today, and then Jason's like, it's a big picture because Pokemon Snap, and then he said there are numbers, so it's because of number. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and I guess other stuff happened. I mean, Nintendo's still doing successful, so Jason will remind you of that. And you could also that's outro stuff. But yeah, without further ado, I'm Angel, and we also have I forget how this
I'm
goes.
Jason.
Jason, and there's also Kevin.
Hey, yo.
And yeah, I guess what do you guys want to start with?
Well,
Jason?
hold on. You forgot something crucial. There are
that's-
timestamps on the blog post.
Oh, that's right.
At
timestamps.
random.com.
It's such an easy thing
Yeah,
to
I
forget.
never remember to bring up the timestamps during QC.
Yeah, it's that was a request from someone years ago that they wanted timestamps because this thing's so long, and maybe they would care about Super Paper Mario or not Super Paper Mario,
Timestamps are
Super
very
Mario
important
Party,
for
or maybe they
super
want to care
long
about Game
podcasts,
Builder
for sure.
Garage, and this lets them find what they're looking for.
Yeah, timestamps are a very good call.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
we should probably mention
it.
actually, along with those, because we said Pokemon Snap, but we didn't acknowledge that Kevin also has the new Apex Legends Season 9 impressions. So we have 2 games we're talking about,
Hey, yo.
not just one. Angel, do you have a game to talk about? Where are you doing with your life at this point in time?
Lately,
Oh,
I've
man,
just
this
been doing a
episode
lot
just
of
got heavy.
animation. I mean, lately I've just been doing a lot of animation. It's been pretty great jumping into Maya. I'm also getting close to my 1-year anniversary. I think it's maybe 1 or 2 weeks from now of having drawn a different cockatiel in a costume every single week for almost a year, which, yeah, is pretty great. Like this week's cockatiel is a Ratchet one, and I've already sketched it out. Just have to clean up the lines.
To be clear, you mean Ratchet and Clank, not Ratchet like Real Big Night of Clank.
yes, a Ratchet and Clank one.
Okay, just need to make sure.
Yeah, and I mean, and they've run the gamut. Like, just to give you an idea of like the variety. Like last week was Ash Ketchum. Week before that was Phoenix Wright. Then the Shredder. Then Godzilla. Then Samus. Then Shrek. Then Banjo. Then Akuma. Then Freya from God of War 2018. Then Sephiroth. Then the Xenomorph. And even Bill and Ted. So kind of anything is on the table. But yeah, so that's been keeping me busy. Not as many new games though. I mean, when I do play, it's been Smash Brothers, as I'm also preparing for a crew battle actually, which is kind of exciting. The Discord where we had that tournament, I want to say back in November, December, that I'm really happy I actually won. We are now having a crew battle, like against another Discord, the cosplay Discord, surprisingly.
Oh man, it's like a
So
turf
not
war.
really what you would expect to have like really great Smash Brothers players. But
Is that stereotyping? That feels like it's stereotyping. Kevin, is that stereotyping?
I mean,
That sounds like
compared to
stereotyping.
Is definitely stereotyping.
Angel, tisk
I mean,
tisk. And on
no,
recording
it-
too. You can't take it back. It's on the record forever.
I said I wouldn't expect them to have, not that they can't have.
It's still stereotyping.
I mean, it's like saying like, oh, it's literally a Discord dedicated to Smash Brothers versus a Discord dedicated to cosplay. I mean, who do you think would have the upper hand? But just off the
cosplayers
bat.
with the element of surprise.
Well, I mean, that's what they would have. That's all they would have going for them. But yeah, so looking forward to that. Never really done a crew battle, especially on this scale, and it'll actually be streamed. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, my power
That's
doesn't
cool.
go out like it did during the tournament.
Nice.
Oh right.
But yeah,
So
that's
that's what you've been not
That's
playing.
been me.
Which
Yeah, just Smash Bros. And Monster Hunter when I can't play. Or
Right.
Brawl Stars, but yeah.
Right. Which I guess that sort of leads us into what we're playing, Kevin, you and I. So for me, I guess we'll talk about our episode's namesake, which is new Pokemon Snap. Actually, I kind of have a question for you guys about new Pokemon Snap. What did you guys play it on the N64? Like, were you into it? Like, what was your relationship with that game? Like, did you like it?
I can't even remember if I played it anymore.
Wow. What about you, Angel?
I remember seeing it a lot when it came out. I don't remember if I was physically holding a controller anymore to actually control the game.
So that almost speaks volumes of how you feel about the game. It's just, it existed.
Essentially, I mean, like I remember all the hype surrounding it, especially like being able to go to a Blockbuster to print out pictures.
Yeah. What about you,
Rest in
Angel?
peace, Blockbuster.
R.I.P. There's one still in Portland or Bend, Oregon, or one of those places. So
there's a couple of them. I know there's one in Alaska, and they have Russell Crowe's
Mains?
like loincloth from Gladiator on display.
not at all weird.
Something like that.
Not that much different than what I guessed.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Huh.
Angel, were you a big Pokemon Snap guy? Where
It was a jockstrap. My bad.
Yeah,
It wasn't a loincloth. It was a jockstrap. So even weirder.
Yeah, definitely weird.
Kinda. I remember my brother and I really liked it. I mean, I want to say we 100% at the first game. I mean, it's not that it's like long of a game. It's like a couple hours, if even less. Yeah, I remember liking it. I like the, how, I mean, it feels kind of weird to say now because it's so old now, but just how like lived in it feel, just seeing the Pokemon in their natural habitat.
Yes.
I don't know. We enjoyed it, and while I haven't exactly fully revisited lately, I have here and there, like in the last 10 years, actually even during college once, I think, kind of just like either watch someone play or just kind of go back to like footage of levels, and my memories of it were way better than I guess what it was. It's unfortunately in that camp of like, I kind of wish I left it as a memory, because it looked way better in my head. But the interactions were still really cool. Like, if for an N64 game, that's really awesome. Right. And, I mean, it looks like this one kind of captures that. But, I don't know. I'm more, for this one, more than anything, it's just more of a, like I mentioned, I've been really busy animating and drawing stuff lately. And I kind of want to beat Monster Hunter before anything else. So, I don't really think I have the bandwidth to add another game into my rotation.
Right.
But
I
enjoy it, but I guess not enough to buy it day one. We'll just put it that way.
Right. And you kind of, I mean, both of you explained something, but really you, Angel, kind of hit the nail on the head. The reason I was asking, because for years, I mean, literally years, I've been saying how I want a sequel to Pokemon Snap, and like I still think not having it on Wii U was a huge oversight by Nintendo because of
Wii U was like the best platform for it.
Yeah, and it's funny because apparently it was the response to Pokemon Snap hitting Wii U's Virtual Console that actually finally truly got the sequel made. Like, there were a few attempts in the past before that, according to the developers, but it wasn't till the groundswell when it came to Wii U, the original, that suddenly people cared. But, so, I for years have been like, oh my god, yeah, Pokemon Snap. But then, like, from the time it was announced up until release, like, as it kind of moved towards release, I kept starting to have some doubts. And I think, Angel, you're partly to blame. Because, I mean, you hit the nail on the head just now of like, it's not how I remembered it. Yeah,
chill out a little bit right there. Please.
I know. Angel, you're at fault. But no, seriously, because you have pointed out to me time and time again that sometimes my love of stuff as a kid can be clouded with nostalgia. I mean, I'll swear on my life that Star Fox 64 is actually a good game, but you raised some legit points about why, it's good in my opinion versus yours when you got into the series later. So my point is, like, everything about New Pokemon Snap did feel like a new Pokemon Snap in the way that, like, New Super Mario Brothers was the same basic gameplay just with updated visuals. New Snap kind of almost seemed like it was just straight up an HD Pokemon Snap, right? And the question that kept lingering in my mind was, like, how much did I enjoy the original Snap because it's the first 3D representation of the Pokemon world, the first chance to, even low polygons, as you said, Angel, like, have a lived-in Pokemon world that you could experience. Like, how much of it was my love of Pokemon at the time and my Pokeholism, I guess you could call it, and going to Blockbuster, like you were talking about, Kevin, and printing out the sticker
you
cards.
You did love that Pokehall.
I sure did. I drank it every day.
Yeah.
But, how much of it was that, and how much of it was like an actual
parents were worried.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, they so much money on Pokemon stuff over the years. Like, they probably just look at it and go like, oh yeah, there goes like half his college savings just right into Pokemon cards. But, Yeah, so how much of it was, that stuff, and how much of it was actually good, engaging gameplay, or the gameplay concept itself? Like, how much does that hold up? Like, maybe there's a reason Nintendo didn't bow to fan demand for like 22 straight years. So I sort of came into new Pokemon Snap with like weirdly conflicting expectations. Because on the one hand, I was psyched to finally have a new entry, but then there's definitely this little voice in my head that was like, but did you actually want it, though? Like, is it actually something that should get a new entry? And what I'm now happy to report to you guys is that so far, in my time with the game, that little voice is pretty quiet. And I think, I'm mostly enjoying it. I think the reason is kind of twofold. I mean, first, in the same way that Pokemon Snap felt like you're in that living, breathing world, exactly what you're saying, Angel, even by early 3D standards, new Pokemon Snap, the graphical boost absolutely delivers that feeling all over again for me, which is especially impressive given that other properties within Pokemon have now also captured that feeling. I mean, as you guys know, and as anyone who listens to the show for a few years now has, heard me say time and time again, like that feeling of a real Pokemon world is probably my favorite Pokemon experience. It's not the battling, it's not the catching, it's the feeling of like being inside this Pokemon world and, being inside all that Pokemon, bad word, all that Pokemon stuff, I should say. Yeah. But it's it's what I loved about like the wild area in Pokemon Sword and Shield. It's what I absolutely loved about Detective Pikachu as a movie. So you'd think maybe that'd be tapped out to some degree. Like I've experienced it in all these other ways that are more flashy. Like, is Snap enough? Yet surprisingly, like with new Snap, seeing the interactions between the various Pokemon with each other, with the environment, with even with you when you throw fluff fruit at them. It's just, it's just such a, like, it sounds so cheesy. It's such a joy to experience. Like, I don't know how better to describe it. Like, it goes beyond what those other experiences gave us. And there are, like, 200 Pokemon in the game versus 60 in the first Pokemon Snap. And even with that many Pokemon, the developers still have each Pokemon have multiple experiences and interactions that just make it feel alive. Like, some come off, very scripted and canned. There's one where, like, Bidoofs run away from a Dodrio in the first level that just so happens to happen the second you roll by in your little Neo one, which, it feels like a theme park ride where you roll over a switch and the animatronic springs to life and does its thing. But then in that same first level, like, there's, like, every other type of Pokemon has, like, their own little story. You see, using Bidoof again, because my favorite, but you see, like, a Bidoof scampering from you at the start, then a little later you see him and some other Bidoof, kind of holding sticks near a dam they're building, then, you roll a bit further down the road, river, and now there's Bidoofs coming down the river. What? Beduffing? No, Bidoofing.
No, just Bidoofing it up.
Bidoofing it up. Being the best Bidoofs they could be.
That should have been the episode title.
Blessed.
Bidoofing it up. But
I mean, you must feel so blessed that you actually get Bidoof in the game, because
dude,
I think
you have no idea.
If Chatot was in there, I feel like I would have been more inclined to just have it already. But yeah, unfortunately, that's like the one thing I just spoiled for myself, just whether certain Pokemon are in there or not, and none of the ones I wanted to be in there are.
I am incredibly, to use your word, I'm incredibly blessed that Bidoof is having a year. I mean, Diamond and Pearl remake. He's in Pokemon Arceus. Like, he was in the trailer. He's in Pokemon Snap in the first level in, like, bulk. Like, there's tons of Bidoof. Like, it's, man, I've
someone there must really
long.
love Bidoof.
I've waited, yeah, and I applaud that person, because it's like Bidoof
kind of a
heaven.
side.
It's all I've ever wanted.
Kind of a side tangent, but if you enjoy watching the occasional just like animated short on the internet from time to time, there was a series, who made it? This was a long time ago, by Dork. Maybe it was Dorkly? I think it was Dorkly. Not all their skits are great, but there was one series I think called Pokemon Rusty that my brother and I got really into.
Oh yeah, Pokemon Rusty's hilarious.
Yeah, that one was really funny.
Doesn't it?
He has a really big role in that.
Yeah.
The whole thing is like 47 minutes, because it was like a bunch of like little 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute shorts, and they tackle everything from like EV training to breeding to gyms to pretty much like everything Pokemon related. But it just gets pretty bonkers towards the end, and especially if you're a big fan of Bidoof, like I would really recommend it because it's pretty hilarious. Like, I don't know if you ever saw the ending, Jason, but
I don't remember seeing the ending, but I definitely remember seeing some of it.
Yeah, but
because you showed
Bidoof
it
is
to me.
like the yeah, he's just the main part. I know I've shown you episodes, but I don't know if it was like concluded by then. But
Also,
maybe I have to show you the last few because I would like to see your reaction as well. Especially
someone on Twitter pointed out, and I can't believe I missed this. The Bidoof name, I never thought about it. It's Big Doofus, just shortened, which is so perfect.
Then what's Bieber, or did they just kind of like drop the ball on that one?
I don't know. Just let this Twitter guy have his theory. but yeah, no, Bidoof's the best.
That kind of sounds like just so no look for the evolution at all, though, right? It's like as soon as he evolves, you're like, I don't care about you anymore.
Oh, the evolution looks dumb. It's all about the original. It's the OG Bidoof that matters.
Oh, and the pre-evolution doesn't look dumb?
It's like charming dumb, not like beady eyes. He's gonna like murder you, and he's gonna like pop up slowly from behind your bed in the dark. Dumb. Like, I don't know. I don't like his evolution. I mean, his evolution's fine, but I prefer the younger Doof.
Gotcha. Yeah, you like him young. Yeah.
Oh, right. I did not say that. First, I almost said I like being inside Pokemon. Now you have me saying that. This is not going well for me this episode. But anyway, no. The thing I was gonna say, or the thing I was getting at with Bidoof is like the original Pokemon Snap did have those sort of character vignettes where they like weave in and out of the level as you go through. But what's cool, and what I really appreciate because it's Bidoof, about new Pokemon Snap is they're not picking flagship Pokemon here. Basically, the fact that you have Bidoof doing that while 5 and 6 other Pokemon are also weaving in and out with their own little activities just really brings it to life in a way that the original didn't, which obviously, there's more graphical power to work with. And of course, they're all just like triggered animations and scripts and stuff, but it's just cool to have that much happening at once. And I think what really helps with that feeling of everything being so alive is that while you do have to revisit the same areas multiple times, like in the original game, here each time you raise a level, I think they're called levels. The levels level, yeah. By basically, as you take photos, you get points. As you get those points, you can raise you get to like level 2, level 3 of each environment. And as you go back, all the Pokemon are doing different things. Like, there's all these new scenarios. It's the same basic Pokemon. Sometimes there's some different ones, but they're all, like, interacting in different ways. And even if you're revisiting the same environment, it's not like the original where, it's just, now you're on a branching path, but everything leading up to it's the same. Like, every time you get to that new, like, level, all the Pokemon are engaging in different ways. If they were asleep before, maybe they're awake. If they're walking by themselves, maybe they're in a herd. Bidoof maybe is hanging out.
So does that mean once you miss something, you miss it?
No, because you can go back and play. You could replay any level. I guess the better way to think of it is each environment's a world.
Every stage of it, I guess?
Yeah. So when you level up a level, which is silly wording, it's actually environments with individual stages, really. I'm just using their level term, which is confusing. But, it's, so there, there's, I think, like 6 per, like, or 4 or 5, like some day, some night. And then there's usually like an offshoot one. And, each of those individual ones, if you go in it individually, it's the same experience, but there's so many Pokemon, so many things happening, you can do it a few times over and not feel repetitive. But because they actually like evolve the environment as you unlock more levels, like it does feel much more alive because it's the same environment, but now it's it's sunset and they're doing something different, or it's nighttime and they're asleep, or it's daytime and there's a herd of them, and it really helps make it feel like it's not just this kind of like theme park ride exclusively. I mean, it is, but it adds more variety, I guess you could say. And
gotcha.
And you will, to some level, need to replay the same stage a few times to capture all your photos, but like it just it just really helps make it feel a little more varied. And I haven't even touched on the attention to detail for each Pokemon either. Like the way they interact with you and your items, like that too varies. Like gone is the Pester Ball from the original Snap, because I mean, if this is supposed to be the real world, you don't want like anger or upset a wild animal you're observing by like chucking things, like painful things or deadly things at it. So instead, they kept fruit. It's no longer apples. It's called fluff fruit, like I was saying before. Different Pokemon engage with it differently, though. It's not like in the original where it's like, oh, fruit, and they just immediately eat it. Some will like it, others won't. In a really good example of detail, even some can't engage with it if they want to. Like if you throw a fluff fruit at a Cacnea, it will actually stick to its needles. Like it can't even get to it because like if you throw it just right, it sticks to the needle, which is perhaps my favorite example of how the developers really tried to make this feel like it was a real world, because if you threw something at a sharp object in real life, there is a chance it would stick to it too. Like, it's not just like, oh, well, this Pokemon just happens to have spikes, but we're going to pretend it's a real creature. It's like, well, no, it's a spiky Pokemon, so what happens if you throw something at it? And there's also now a new scanning feature, which it kind of serves as like a tip system for when to look out for specific Pokemon or environmental elements, like certain interactions. But it kind of fills in for the pester ball a little, in that when you scan a Pokemon, it will react. It's not going to be full on like annoyed at you or pestered feeling, but it definitely sort of gently prods them to engage with you in some way. So there's kind of this early on in the game, there's both these options. And, you know, obviously in the original Pokemon Snap, you ultimately got the Poke Flute. I'm not far enough in this one to know if it's there, but same idea. So that's all the first of my twofold of reasons why I'm enjoying the game, the world. The other is just how much more there is over the first game. Like I said before, there's, you know, 200 plus Pokemon here versus 60 in the original. We're talking more environments, more of a story, albeit a very light one, that kind of strings it together. There's a set of secondary missions that are assigned by Professor Mirror and his assistant Rita, which have you capture certain Pokemon in certain conditions, which, again, it's good that you have variety in the Pokemon behaviors, because that makes having to go and capture them, you know, you're going back to environment, but you're going to the right level, you're experiencing everything you're trying to find when they're awake or yawning or this or that. Like, it helps make it feel more alive, even if it can get a little repetitive as you look for the right thing. And there's also an online component where you can set up an online page to highlight your 6 favorite photos you've shot. Mine are, as we were just discussing, of course, all Bidoof. You can give a suite to other people's photos, which I guess Facebook must have a copyright on like or something, so it's suite here. And you can browse like most popular pics. There's like trending on the main menu when you first boot up the game. There's actually a neat little feed that shows you other people's photos as they fly by, which again makes it feel like you're part of this bigger alive Pokemon world where everyone's taking pictures. Plus, you know, the nice thing about the sharing is the Switch has the screenshot tool, right? So you can actually post your pics to social media. And very much in a sign of the times, when you save pictures in-game to post on the in-game sharing or to your Switch's social media, you can add filters, stickers, borders. Actually, when you first complete a level, they even do a cool thing where you can reframe your photo. As long as it's in the same viewfinder, like capture, you can move things around, zoom in, adjust. So that's kind of nice. Change some of the focus point and things like that. So that's all really cool. But here's where the little voice size word about starts to kind of pop up again. The photos themselves. So the game's algorithm, or Professor Mirror, he rates your pictures based on a number of criteria, ranging from the framing to the Pokemon's pose to how much is going on in the background or if other Pokemon are in the shot, you know, all that good stuff. But the problem I've been having is he doesn't really rate them well. And yeah, I think
he doesn't rate them well, or he doesn't rate your pictures well.
No, he doesn't rate. He doesn't rate.
True.
I'm not.
They're all Bidoof.
I mean, we're all talking about.
Listen, I got 4
pictures taken by
Bidoof,
you.
So here, let me.
Like,
explain.
then again, you are known for taking, and I hate to admit this, like, you take good pictures, like really good pictures that you usually post on, you know, your Instagram and Twitter about from events or when we go to conventions and stuff like that.
Thank you.
But the problem is that none of them feel like they're taken by a normal person.
Oh, I'm not a normal person.
And you're definitely not. So like that's kind of like well, no, duh.
For anyone who wants reference to what Angel's saying,
like they feel
is, that
and
I
you
look
can
like
take this
I'm
as a
hired
compliment
by every event.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sure, you can take that
that.
as a compliment, but all his pictures always give me that feeling of like this person was hired to take this picture for like a magazine, not by like someone that genuinely wanted to do it for fun. Like they all feel like, oh, man, this is another paycheck.
But what's funny is that is fun for me, and I think when I was saying, you know, I don't know how I'm going to interpret Pokemon Snap this many years later, this is where the difference lies between playing as a 10-year-old Pokemon diehard and now a 32-year-old Pokemon fan. Like, this is where it starts to fall into place, because, I mean, new Pokemon Snap, for all intents and purposes, is just a slowed down on-rail shooter, right? Like, Nintendo traded shooting a gun for, like, shooting film, shooting to film, I should say. But the way it all plays out, the way you're just sort of like along for the ride, it's a light gun game. And that means, of course, that like a light gun game, it's important to aim directly at your target. That's how the genre works. The better the more centered your shot, the better you're going to do. But in the time since 10-year-old me played Pokemon Snap, I started to like to take actual photos, like you're saying, Angel. Maybe to a degree that I should be getting paid, then I'm not. I don't know. But whenever I'm traveling, I take way too many
you need
photos.
to reach out. You need to find someone.
I know, right? Well, I mean,
you kind of deserve to be paid for
I
somebody.
didn't get paid, but I did get, like, I took my favorite example is I took a photo of Mike Shinoda at a show, like Linkin Park's Mike Shinoda, and then Linkin Park's team reached out.
I thought we were going to talk about a Pokemon photo.
Oh, no. But Mike Shinoda's team reached out. I was like, hey, could we, like, use this? And he, like, retweeted and stuff. So I sometimes get attention for it. But anyway, yeah, but I take a lot of photos now. I mean, I was looking the other day on my camera, and even just sitting at the apartment, I have 2,800 photos of the 3 cats that live here. Like, what? That's insane. No, that's not. But, my point.
2,800,
28,
Jesus.
yeah, and I've only been living with the cat. I mean, granted, some of the photos go back to...
I don't think I have 2,800 photos just in general.
I have...
I don't think I've ever taken that many photos, honestly.
I have... Oh, God, I'm afraid to admit this to you guys. I'm opening my camera right now. 44,757 photos. This goes back to 2011, though, but still, 44,000. So I clearly like taking photos, is the point.
Yeah, I might have like half of that, maybe.
And
if I'm lucky.
And the thing is, when I do take the photos, and when I choose to share them, because it's not going to share 2,800 cat photos, but when I choose to share them, I like to sit there and meticulously, as Angel pointed out, edit them. So for adult me, what constitutes a good photo, quote unquote, isn't necessarily what's dead center in the way a light gun game would want you to be dead center. It has rule of thirds. It has dynamics to the picture and dynamic scale stuff. It's as silly as it sounds, making sure that nothing is obstructed in a shot unless I'm choosing for it to be for whatever visual reason. Professor Mirror, though, he doesn't care about that. I can have a picture of a Pichu and a Grookey.
He doesn't care about composition.
He does not care about composition. I can have a picture of Grookey and Pichu frolicking in a field, both being half blocked by like flowers and grass, and I'll get 4 stars. I can have a picture of a Magikarp where 1/3 of his body is not even in the shot, but because he's doing his canned animation, it gets 3 stars automatically. And you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up to like S or something like that. Yet a cool photo that I had of like a Pokemon looking off in the distance where he's kind of off center, but there's the coastline next to him and the lighting's hitting just right, 1 star. And, to be fair, sometimes it works out nicely with really great pictures.
Well, you have to remember. This guy's a researcher.
Yeah. Well, this is my point. This is my point. This is totally my point.
Find the real world implication. Yeah, like it's a game for kids. Like you swear they're going to take that into account, but at the same time, and in world wise, I mean, does this professor? Do we know if he has a background in photography?
Dude's name is Mirror. He's named after the technology in a camera. Come on. His whole goal is to photograph every Pokemon.
I mean, there are mirrorless cameras now.
Yeah.
Just because your name is Mirror, I mean, that's just what's his given name. I mean, he has no control over that.
But he chose a profession that matches it, so, No, but
doesn't make him good at it automatically.
I know.
If anything, it makes him more likely to not be.
And this isn't so much a knock against the game's mechanics, because, like, it does work out where nice photos can be centered well and everything, but my point is, it's taking my brain some rewiring to, like, be like, okay, this isn't actually about photography. While as a kid, when I played it as a kid, I was like, oh my god, this is about photography.
Isn't about photography.
What? What was that?
No, that's what you said. Like, this game about taking pictures is not about photography.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So it just takes a little rethinking, and what gets a little frustrating is even in that context of, okay, Professor Mirror doesn't care about composition in the real sense. Like, he says pose matters and everything, but it's really just do your light gun game. Even then, some of the secondary tasks he assigns where you have to capture certain conditions, you think you got it, you don't necessarily. And I'm not sure what determines, like, it kind of fluctuates a little in terms of what he's looking for when you think, all right, I figured out the game's, like, algorithm, and then you kind of don't. And that's kind of the thing with, like, a lot of Pokemon Snap, which is sort of my last thought, is that it gives you all these different ways to do something, but it feels like there's really only one way you're supposed to do something. Like, yes, you can select and edit your photos using the controller, but everything about the menus is made for touch, which in handheld mode, luckily, it does support. But then on the flip side, everything about exploring the Pokemon world feels developed for dock mode to have on your big TV, to the point that, like, the frame rate starts to chug in handheld if you're doing some of the more elaborate sequences. And, I could talk about how, like, the discoverability of other players' photos in the game isn't necessarily as strong as it could be, or, while the Pokemon look great, some of the environments are a little less so. But, like, ultimately, once I get over the hump of this isn't a photography game, it's a light gun game that you explore a Pokemon world in, it's really fun. Like, the the photography thing in the grand scheme of things isn't holding me back. Like the fun of rolling through these environments, seeing the Pokemon come to life, it's like your own personal safari, and it's exactly what I've always wanted from the Pokemon franchise, to be like in that world. And on that level, New Pokemon Snap does deliver. Like it's not perfect. It's just a lot of fun to experience, you know? And if you like the first one, you're gonna like this one because it's capturing that same experience. It just, you know, the photos aren't exactly photos. They're just sort of like on freeze frames. So if you can get over that, it's a good time. And, you know, I can assure you that it's not necessarily the nostalgia of the Pokemon frenzy in the 90s that made you like the first Pokemon Snap. It's nothing like that. It's legitimately a very fun gameplay concept. So, you know, rest assured, if you like the first one, with a few caveats here, you're going to like this one too. And that's Pokemon Snap. And a deep dive into my photography.
It sounds like a happy ending.
Yeah. So, So yeah, from the serene, I guess, to something way more intense. Kevin, Apex Legends Season 9, how is it? How's it going?
Apex Legends Season 9 Legacy. Well, so apparently they dropped the numbering scheme, because before it would, whenever they'd announce it, it'd be like Apex Legends, right under it, it would say the season name, and then right under that, the season number, my bad. And then right under that, the season name. They just decided to drop Season 9, which is weird, considering that Season 10 is like, you know, a big milestone, and they're just not going to call it Season 10 or Season X or whatever.
So it's just Apex Legends Legacy, like it's some sort of spin-off game or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Legacy, it's probably the biggest update that Apex has gotten. It added a new legend. Her name is Valkyrie. She's awesome. She's got a jetpack. Her like tactical ability that recharges allows her to just drop a bunch of missiles on like enemies. And her ultimate ability allows her to take herself and her teammates up to the skies to essentially dive around a small distance on the map. She's incredibly useful whenever you need to get out of some like more hectic situations, or you want to just dive bomb on an enemy team to, you know, get the jump on them. She's an incredibly mobile character, and those are the most fun to play as for sure in the game. Just like Octane, who's a speed demon, or Horizon, who can lift herself up into the air really quickly. So she's really, really fun. They also added a new point of interest on the Olympus map called Icarus, which is also really cool. It's got like this tech vibe that the rest of the map has, but it's also like overgrown with like giant roots and giant trees. Gives that area of the map definitely a different feel compared to the rest of it. And then they also added a new weapon, the bow check, which is a compound bow. And there's a lot of attachments that you can get for it. I, unfortunately, am very, very terrible with it. Just as I'm a terrible Hanzo in Overwatch, who just uses a bow. So I don't go anywhere near it. But your brother, Angel Elvis, he loves it. So, but he's not a Hanzo main in Overwatch the way our friend Matthew is. But Matthew also loves it.
He plays the ninja, huh, usually.
Yeah, he plays Genji. So he plays Hanzo's brother, Genji. Yeah. But the star of the update for sure is the new 3v3 mode called Arena. And it's also permanent. It's not this
it's
mode
permanent.
that they're just going to take out.
So
Yeah,
they're not doing a Fortnite. They're actually just adding instead of taking away.
Exactly.
Interesting.
What are you, 32? A Fortnite?
Yeah. Oh, they're not doing what the kids do. Fortnite.
Yeah, so this mode, it's very, very simple. It's essentially deathmatch with no respawns, so you get one life, and that's it. You and your teammates. Your team has to win with a minimum of 3 points, of like 3 rounds, and to win the entire match, you have to have at least one with a 2-point differential, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you guys?
I think so.
Oh yeah, so it's like tennis. You have to win by 2 points.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, you keep going forever. Perfect.
Yeah. But here you don't go forever. You essentially just so the minimum amount of rounds that a match can go is 3, and that's like just if you either 3-0 or 0-3 your opponents, or if they have 1 and you have 3, But the maximum amount of rounds is 9, and that's going all the way to sudden death. That's actually one of the great things about this mode is that you're spending at most maybe 15 minutes in a match compared to 30 minutes in the battle royale if you get like all the way. And like in that mode, it can take 10 minutes before you come across an enemy team. Here you have no choice but to confront the enemy team within like 1 or 2 minutes, because where one of the differences lies between the battle royale and the arena mode is that obviously you don't need an entire map to fit 60 players. You're only fitting a tenth of that. So Respawn like created a few handcrafted maps for this mode that are just a little bit bigger than a regular point of interest on a battle royale map, but they're also taking some point of interest in those maps and just like retrofitting them to this mode. I don't believe those maps are out yet, but another difference is you don't exactly find weapons on the map the way that you would in battle royale. Instead, at the start of each round, you have a certain amount of credits to spend, similar to Counter-Strike or Valorant. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, you guys know that I love me some Valorant, so seeing Apex and Valorant mixed together it feels so, so good. So you have a certain amount of credits at the start of each round, and what's interesting is that those credits don't carry over to the next round. So you can't just hoard credits in the first 2 rounds and then just buy top tier weapons and equipment for the later rounds. With these credits, you are buying those weapons as I just mentioned, upgrades for the weapons, abilities, and armor as well as equipment.
That seems like a good decision, right? To not let people strategize by just hiding in a corner and hoarding points during the first round or two to then go blitz the last round.
Yeah, exactly. And you also don't carry over the weapons into the next round. So you always have to like spend your credits to, you can't just. That's another great point where you can maybe buy a cheap gun, win the round, and then the next round, oh, let me just upgrade it. No, you have to rebuy the gun. You have to rebuy all your abilities. Like nothing carries over from round to round, which I think is a great design choice on Respawn's part, because that just means that you're not going to get blown out by round 3.
Yeah, I think
everybody's on
it,
equal footing.
I think it kind of levels the playing field a bit. As someone like looking at it as someone who plays Apex kind of more casually,
more about skill.
Yeah, because at that point it's just how well you can play the game versus like can you strategically hoard a gun.
Yeah, exactly. There is ways to earn a few extra credits. Like on the maps, there will be a few little points where you can collect maybe about like 200 credits, which isn't that much. Like you could maybe get, no, I don't think you can even get like a full upgrade really. And then you could also earn a few extra credits by taking down a couple of opponents from the previous round. They also do drop care packages similar to the Battle Royale, and those care packages will usually have some very, very, very good weapons with like all of their upgrades already. So it becomes this thing where it's like, do we go for the care packages for the weapons? Because like obviously the other team is going to want it to do it too. And if we go for it, we might be just sitting ducks out in the middle of the open, the mode is super, super fun. Nothing can really match the feeling of having, your 2 teammates down and you just clutching it by wiping all 3 of your opponents. Or like vice versa. Me being down and then seeing Angel's brother just destroy the enemy team. And then us winning the round. The only reason I'm a little hesitant to get into it right now is because there's still no ranked mode. I definitely prefer playing games that have, or like competitive games of this nature. Yeah, exactly. So like I rarely play
I guess that's not the
trios in the
progression.
Battle Royale mode. Yeah, exactly. It's like, the trios in Battle Royale is fun, especially if, you just want to get a quick fix where you're not too stressed out. But I mainly play ranked, where it's like, I really have to focus or else I'm going to, rank down as opposed to rank up. Here, there's still only a non-ranked mode, but I believe Respawn did say that there will be a ranked playlist in the future, so I got that to look forward to. this mode is fantastic. It's probably the best one since I got back into the game all the way back to season 5. So yeah, almost 4 or 5 seasons ago. There's truly a little bit of everything in this game now for everybody. So that's awesome. And Respawn has said that they want to add like non-PvP components to this game at some point in the future.
Oh, really?
I think this update is definitely, like with this update, you could definitely see some stuff, some of those PvE stuff crawling through.
Mm-hmm.
A while back, actually, I believe it was like season 3, where they did add like a PvE component on the World's Edge map, where you drop into a pit and you play like 3 rounds of these like tiger-like creatures just attacking you in waves. But they also added like a few story things to this. Apex Legends has always had a story, just like in the background, where the Apex Legends is almost a game show,
Right?
or
right.
the Apex games is a game show, and it's in the Titanfall universe. And this new character, Valkyrie, is actually the daughter of one of the main antagonists of Titanfall 2. So Respawn definitely does want to add more Titanfall-ness into this game. Valkyrie, I think, was the perfect stepping stone to that. So I believe they will be adding some PvE content in the future. Whether it's you solo or you with your teammates, it's got to be with your teammates, because this game revolves around having at least one other person with you at all times. That's why they never introduced a permanent solo mode.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Respawn has been hitting it out of the park. It's insane.
I remember like a year in to Apex, there are all these hot takes and think pieces about like how it fizzled out. Do you remember that? Like, because like it didn't have the buzz for a minute there. Like it was doing well at first, and then kind of wasn't for a bit. It wasn't not doing well. But everyone's like, oh well, it's not growing. And now you're talking about how it's this whole expanded universe.
It wasn't
100 million
Fortnite.
active players. I saw the other day. Like they really turned that around. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, when this season launched, their servers just completely broke. Like you couldn't get into a game for the update went live at 10 a.m. I didn't get into a match until about 6 p.m.
Wow. Okay, that's literally an 8-hour wait.
That's how crazy this update was.
Server issues. Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. And granted, like I tried to get in there immediately, and I couldn't get in for maybe about 45 minutes. So then I would go away, come back, maybe an hour or two, still couldn't get in. So, but yeah, this update has everybody really excited, not just because of the implications of what Respawn is doing with story and potential PvE stuff, but because what it also means for the Titanfall franchise, which Titanfall 2 in the last couple of months has seen a recent like uptick of player interest. So, maybe this gets Respawn to do a Titanfall 3. So, Titanfall 2 is widely considered as having one of the best story campaigns in first-person shooters. So, you never know.
Right.
Wait, so I could be wrong, but is this Valkyrie, is her ult getting one of those titans, or is a titan in the game not a mechanic yet?
So there was a leak where supposedly the new character would drop down a titan, and they would suppress an area near them. So that was completely false, as either the creator would say. Yeah, so that was a lie. So she doesn't summon a titan. Her ult is like when you get on one of those balloons that shoots you up into the air and then you just dive. But she does essentially feel like a mini titan herself, with her rockets, her jetpack, like all her mobility stuff. So, and she is a titan pilot in the lore of the game. So
all the threads are there to make something like that become a reality down the line, if they want.
Yeah,
to.
exactly. I don't think that they will ever add titans into the game. Respawn did say that they do want to add more Titanfall stuff into Apex, and I believe what that means is at some point in the future there will be a legend that can wall run, because that's all that Titanfall is. It's just wall running. So I'm sure we'll get a legend in the future that where you will be able to do that. Initially, Respawn did say that they wanted to add that feature, but it just became very, very difficult. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if wall running is in the future legend as a passive ability.
I never made that connection. I mean, obviously, I'm sure any Respawn fan already did, but I never made the connection of the fluidity of Apex and running and the idea of wall running for Titanfall and how that's kind of like Respawn's signature thing. I never thought about that, like just the fluidness. Huh.
Yeah, exactly. I believe this is the best feeling Battle Royale for sure compared to Fortnite and
absolutely.
Warzone, which granted they're doing very different things. But also like the gunplay, I don't think any of those games match the quality of Respawn's gunplay.
Yeah, I feel like
maybe if Bungie decided to get into the Battle Royale stuff, but that would be very, very dangerous for Bungie.
I feel like they're too deep in the like grind of Destiny at this point, like that sort of type of game. But yeah, I think a Battle Royale, from my limited experience with different ones, I think a Battle Royale is best as a first-person shooter. Like I think Apex is my favorite.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because like I understand that Fortnite's going for the metaverse and all that, but like it feels kind of it's still to this day when I occasionally boot up feels kind of clunky. Like it's weird because it's a billion-dollar industry in of itself, but it still feels kind of weirdly clunky. Like it doesn't have the smoothness of like a polished like Apex sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think Respawn is showing any signs of slowing down. I believe EA sees this as one of their biggest properties now, and only strictly because of how much money this game makes. I didn't even talk about the Battle Pass. The Battle Pass for this season kind of weak compared to the last 2 or 3 Battle Passes. Yeah, so there's $10 that kind of wasted because I just didn't like a lot of the stuff that they were giving out. But I mean, what are you gonna do? I'm still gonna buy the Battle Pass. I'm obviously a huge fan.
Right. And if anything, it's more just to pay forward to future updates. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's Legacy.
That I should probably go check that out. It's not. It Day and Date was on Switch as well, right? I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And the arena mode does feel like it would suit the Switch way better than an entire Battle Royale mode.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of my passing thought when you were first talking about it. It's just like there's just less happening, easier for the Switch to process. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. I guess that brings us to news. And no, I do have a transition. I think I have a transition. So here we go. You guys ready? Apex Legends wasn't the only game to get shaken up with a new mode. All right, that brings us to Super Mario Party. There we go. Okay. But yeah, no, really, in a surprise move, Super Mario Party now has online play. The difference here between Apex and Super Mario Party is Super Mario Party took 2.5 years to get it, while Apex has just been cranking out updates pretty regularly. So what was your guys' reaction when the announcement popped up out of nowhere last week that now, at last, Mario Party is online?
Maybe a little too late, considering how we're closer to getting back to normal.
Yeah, that's true. Too late in the sense of, I thought I meant too late in terms of Mario Party's like release, but you meant in terms of the pandemic. Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, like I mean, obviously, like I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I mean, it's great that it has it, but yeah, kind of on the same sentiment when we needed it, or when I personally needed it, because there were definitely plenty of times where we're like, oh man, if only we could play Mario Party right now, like literally those words.
Yeah.
But we couldn't.
Yeah.
And we've moved on. Like we're just playing other things now. And I mean, maybe we'll revisit it, but I kind of doubt it because the game was already kind of like, at that point, we're like, well, we're only playing it because it's the newest one. I feel like it doesn't really hold up as well as like the other Mario Parties. I'd much rather replay an older one. Just because, especially in a 4v4 setting, the maps are really boring.
They're very, it's very...
Even though it's only 10 turns,
yeah,
they managed to stretch out 10 turns over 2 hours versus in the past you would have like 15 turns or less in like 45 minutes or something like that.
Wait, what?
And that's
how does it take you 2 hours to do 10 turns?
So dense.
Dude, it takes like...
Oh, dude.
In Super Mario Party?
Jeff Gerstmann from Giant Bomb called it the best, where Super Mario Party is the Red Dead Redemption 2 of Mario Party games. Because the animations.
everything
Oh
takes
yeah, no, the
so
animations take forever,
freaking
but no,
long.
the 10
The
turns is still
animations
like
are
45
like
minutes to an hour.
10 seconds, way too long.
And they do sets of 3.
Okay, I think 2 hours may have been an
Yeah,
exaggeration, but either way, like, you do a lot less and a lot more time, where in the past you would get a lot more done in the same amount of moves.
Which is
like,
super funny
and we-
because
and-
it's so streamlined.
and we played them and we played like Mario Party 2 semi-recently, like I think like a month or two ago, and it's like night and day, just how many things you interact with, just how many things you could do in one turn. Like, turns are so swingy in the past, and it just makes them more exciting.
Right.
Sometimes a little more aggravating if you're on the receiving end of the punishment, but just way more exciting. But now it's just
There's something about there's something about Super Mario Party that just feels sterile compared to, like Mario Party 2, 3, 4,
Really
5,
good word
the
for it.
GameCube era games.
I think
Yeah.
there's two things. One, Angel, excellent choice in picking Mario Party 2 to play because that is definitively the best Mario Party.
No, it's Mario Party
no,
4.
it's
No.
definitely not. We also revisited Mario Party 4, and that one held up really well. That one actually held up more.
Yeah.
That one was better than I remembered. I thought the running was going to be really slow because I just remembered that being a sticking point to me, but it wasn't bad. The only thing that I would maybe say was a kind of a knock against it is the over reliance on the mini and mega mushroom. But everything else was really fun. I was like, wow, this is really cool. Aesthetically wise, Mario Party 2 is like the most
Oh
interesting
yeah, for
one.
sure, the costumes.
But-
yeah. But so that's the two things I'd say. The other thing is in terms of, I guess it's 3 things really, because the sterileness, the simplicity. It's like because they definitely like playing Super Mario Party. The first thought I had was, oh, this is like a restart of the series. This is the second time I use this analogy today. This is the new Super Mario Brothers of Mario Party. Like they scaled it back. The fact that they made it easier to get the star. It's fewer coins. It moves around more. Everything's more compact. But then, it does, to your point, have a bit, because they kind of reset it, they like took away some of the character and personalities, they could like rebuild it later. Like I feel like so much they removed was just to be able to then add it back in with sequels or follow-ups or, kind of like, once they did that silly thing where they all move around in one car, I feel like they're kind of out of ideas. So now they're like restarting it, but I guess, they went a little simplistic with the menus for sure. And the time it takes. It's funny because gameplay-wise it feels quicker, like things are more compact, but they have like 3
the
animations.
are definitely much
Oh
more
yeah,
fun.
yeah, and then they have like
Yeah, the mini games are fine. It's just like even just buying a star, like you buy the star.
yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Get the
And
animation
it's 3
for
animations.
receiving it, and then right after that, you still get the animation of everybody like being disappointed. Where in the past it was just all happening simultaneously.
Yeah,
But to its credit, though, the mode they brought over from I think it was Star Allies or whatever it's called. That's a Kirby game.
the partner mode,
The
partner play,
the partner play. That one
or partner party.
kind of
Excuse me.
saves it a little.
Yeah,
Just because moving with 2 people at once and pretty much being able to move in any direction. Like there's like no, you don't have to go forward or backwards, but you have to take into account exactly how many movement spaces you get because you can't double back. You can't just like go 1, 2 once in the same spot. You have to move that many spaces. So taking all that into consideration does make it a little more interesting. It also feels like the maps were almost built for that.
Oh, they totally were.
So
yeah,
they
the
feel a little
simplicity,
less
the
there.
grid. Yeah,
So so it kind of sucks that mode, like kind of suffered a little because of also the lack of variety of maps. I don't know how they only managed to squeeze in like 4 maps total.
it's
Where
They're
N64,
tiny.
yeah.
yeah,
Well, they're
exactly.
tiny
Like, what
because they're
the
trying to
heck?
speed
Like,
it up, but then they slowed it back down with the triple
yeah, they
animations.
literally
Yeah.
canceled themselves out.
Yeah.
If anything, they ended up a little in the negative. But yeah, spread them out. Like even if like there's less spaces,
Yeah, they're very
was more
squished.
space to run around.
I will say what's cool
but
about
yeah, the partner party, like
yeah.
that's maybe something I would actually try to make time to play online because that mode is at least the most fun part about Mario Party. And I mean, besides the rhythm ones, those are always really fun.
I don't
and
think
also
and I'm not sure if
the-
the rhythm ones made the online
The
cut.
partner raft. Yeah, I don't think those did. I don't
No,
know if the
it's,
river
it's
rafting
the-
one did, but that one was.
Mm-hmm.
But the river rafting is also one of the more fun aspects of Mario Party because it's all co-op.
Yeah,
But
and yeah, that's
did they
the
make it
thing
into the
is
online?
what? I don't think so. So online, from my understanding, I
Did
was
oh my
impressed
God.
that even partner party made it into online. To be honest, because they could have just done the main party mode and
the
the
river
minigames.
rafting one didn't. That's like
I don't
that'd
think
be
so. So from my
perfect.
understanding, what made it to online is Mario Party mode, which is the regular Mario Party, Partner Party, which is what we're just talking about, and the mini games. And not even all the mini games. 70 of the 80 can be played online. 10 just evaporate when you go into online mode. Probably due to latency issues. Although from what I've heard and seen in videos, I haven't tried online myself, but from what I've seen, there already are some latency issues, but even more so with those 10 mini games, I would guess. But yeah, I don't know if rafting made the cut. I don't think the rhythm game made the cut. But the meat of the game is definitely now all online. But I do think you guys raised a good point that if this was aimed at COVID times, it is kind of late. But my theory somewhat is that, unsurprisingly maybe, it ties into something a little broader. Like, yes, I think
2000 late.
I think yes, Will.i.am. I think for sure at the start of the pandemic.
I don't think Will.i.am said that line.
It might have been Fergie that said it. It might have been Fergie, but it was in.
It was definitely Fergie.
Okay. Well, who wrote the song? We have to do a deep dive and figure it out. It could have been Will.i.am.
I don't know. Artists like that don't usually write their own songs.
Yeah.
So.
Half the lyrics Will.i.am says, I'm pretty sure he writes because he has such stupid lyrics. I just feel like who is he hiring to come up with that? It has to be him, right?
Hey man, some of the earlier Black Eyed Peas albums.
Oh yeah. No, they when they went pop and decided to become more like, what sample can we turn to a whole new song without actually changing the sample at all? Like, what they did with Time of Your Life, or what they're doing now with Rhythm of the Night. Like, yeah, that's when they started to slip. But their early stuff, they were pretty good lyricists. Yeah. Wow, that was a tangent. But anyway, my point was, I think at the start of the pandemic, they're probably this would be a good idea. But my theory is that this ties into something a little broader. I think this also ties into why there's so little in the game. I think Nintendo is getting very comfortable and is very much gravitating towards, for lack of a better word, just being frugal. Or maybe you could say being conservative, or being, very revenue driven. But frugal, I think, sums it up best. And my guess is that Nintendo saw an opportunity with Super Mario Party to do a bit of a soft relaunch, essentially. The game's already done well as an evergreen title, probably better than Nintendo ever expected. It's the top selling
in spite of everything we mentioned.
In spite of everything exactly, and I think that sort of solidified it for them. Like, this is the top selling Mario Party ever. And the fiscal year financial report that just came out, like their full fiscal year report, they confirmed it's sold nearly 15 million copies. I think it's like 14.97 or something million. And I think that's like millions ahead of any other Mario Party. So they're being essentially rewarded for their kind of light Mario Party. And then at the same time, the Switch, that's now at nearly 85 million sold, according to that same report. In its lifetime, it's at, I think, 84.59 million Switches out there. I'll circle back to how it's released to Mario Party, but it's officially the third best-selling system in Nintendo history. It surpassed the Game Boy Advance. It's now only trailing behind the DS and Wii, and that sort of like pantheon of Nintendo's hardware. In fact, if Nintendo can meet its own sales goal for this current fiscal year we're in of 25 million, it's going to have higher lifetime sales than the Wii. Of course, there's other factors at play at that point. There's no big pandemic bump this year. Although perhaps the Switch Pro could counter that a little. But then, to counter that, there's a chip shortage that's affecting, every electronic company in the planet. And now Nintendo's admitting it could cause problems for them as well, but they don't know to what degree. So, there's that number's in flux. But the point is, there are 85 million Switches out there right now. 28.84 million of them were sold just this past fiscal year during the pandemic. And whether they were sold to people who were hopping on the Animal Crossing bandwagon or people who just were buying Switches because of the pandemic in general, there's now this huge audience of people.
Does this include Switch Lites?
Yes, it does. The breakdown is something like 20 million Switches and 8 million Switch Lites or so. So the Switch is still the big breadwinner, but the Switch Lite definitely holds its own. And I suspect that's why, Nintendo's still pumping out new colors like the blue one in a couple weeks. But what I was getting at is that, of those 20 million Switches and 8 million Switch Lites, there's now a huge audience of people who perhaps didn't have Super Mario Party on their radar in the same way that they had Animal Crossing or Mario Kart or even Mario 3D World, all of which are games that do have online and have done quite well this past year. So, Nintendo being frugal, in the same way they kind of like, did bare minimum for Mario Party, why make a full sequel when you could take the cheap way out? And they can bring Mario Party in line with the expectations of all those pandemic-era Switch owners, right down to online play, but it's only with friends, like Mario 3D World or online play, but you have to have a invite code like Animal Crossing. There's no matchmaking here. They're just mirroring what their other online games have done and done really well with. And then, boom, push it out, start a new ad campaign. They're already airing new commercials in Japan for Super Mario Party as if it's a new game. Like, there you go. Plus, even for, like, pre-pandemic Switch owners, it's kind of a win for Nintendo because, like, they're, 15 million out of 85, ignoring the 28 that were sold million. Like, there's a ton of people that don't own Mario Party. And I had a friend who already texted me. He lives up in San Francisco, and he was like, hey, I never thought about Mario Party, but if it has online, like, you want to pick it up and play sometime? I'm like, I already have it. There you go. So they're even going to sell it to some existing Switch owners. And I have to imagine, even decisions like this being the very first-party Switch game to use the invite system in the Switch, like the system-level invite feature. I feel like that's just sort of designed to further nudge that word-of-mouth marketing. Like, your buddy wants to play Mario Party with you. Well, you mean you don't have it? Like, it's all very conservatively fiscal but strategic frugality to get their game back in the spotlight without having to do a whole lot of work. And I think they probably were inspired by the pandemic, but I guess it just took time for them to get all the ducks in a row. But more than anything else, I think it does go back to this idea of Nintendo has now mastered the art of being frugal. And frugal maybe isn't the right word; it's the best word I can think of. If you guys have a better word, I think you get what I mean. But like their fiscal year, just like to give you a sense, and we're going to dive into financials for a minute. I'm sorry, but to give you a sense, this past year had their highest ever operating profit. It's bigger than peak Wii, bigger than peak DS. They made 640 billion yen, which is $5.9 billion US dollars. That's 82% higher than what they made a year ago, and 90 billion yen more than they ever made in any year on record. And of course, a big driver of that was Animal Crossing. It did sell 21 million. That's on top of the 12 million it sold before the fiscal year started. So we're looking at it being, right behind Mario Kart, second best selling game, in the 30 millions now. But the pandemic drove a lot of people to buy Switches in general. Like, even digital sales were up 68%. They, because people don't want to go out in the world and buy things. So, like, Nintendo had a lot of revenue coming in from a lot of, like, factors that helped them, like Animal Crossing and digital and Switches. But I think you'd be remiss not to also notice what else really did well if you look at their financials. And I think this is where the frugality comes in. Because in the 7 weeks that game like Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury was on Switch, it matched in 7 weeks the lifetime sales of the Wii U version, which has been around for 7 years. In a couple months' time, Pikmin 3 Deluxe has sold over 2 million copies. That makes it now the best-selling entry in the series and nearly double what its Wii U version did. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, one of the Switch's now top 10 best-selling games, over 10 million units sold. That's double what it did on Wii U, even with it having the advantage of being a launch title on Wii U. And, more recently, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. 3 ports in one, 9 million copies, bare minimum effort. Xenoblade Chronicles, the definitive edition they brought to Switch, 1.5 million copies. Like, they just, they could pump out anything. It does. Even Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I mean, I think we were saying this, I remember that top of the show before we started recording, but yeah, it's the number one selling Switch game. We all know that. 35 million copies. But what's crazy is it's also the best-selling Switch game since the start of our calendar year. From January to March, is the single best-selling Switch game. 4 years after it debuted on Switch, 7 years after it debuted on Wii U. And, like, in the last fiscal year, VentureBeat did some number crunching. It sold 10.6 million copies, which is more than what big blockbusters in 2020 sold. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, a 4 or 7-year-old game, depending on how you looked at it, outsold Ghost of Tsushima. It outsold the U.S. physical sales of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It just is kind of trucking along. It sold so many just last year that it could be on the Switch's top 10 sellers twice because it re-upped into the 10 million range to get above New Super Mario Bros. U if you're just looking at that 1 year sales. Like, it's crazy. And I assume you guys are kind of picking up on the pattern here. Like, Nintendo reports that in the past fiscal year, they sold 231 million units of software. That's higher than the Wii's best year. That's the most software I think they may have ever sold. And in their little corresponding slide deck, which we'll link to in the blog post, for this episode, if there's anyone out there who wants to look at all the pretty graphs and charts and obsess over them like me, in there, they say that in this fiscal year alone, there were 36 Switch games that sold over 1 million copies. 22 were first party, 14 were third party. Obviously, something like Animal Crossing's a shoo-in for that on the first-party side. Monster Hunter Rise, and that's already at 6 million shipped, so that's a shoo-in for the third party. But where I'm going with this is Nintendo didn't release anywhere near 22 games last year. They released like 7. They did, however, see older games do really well. Ring Fit's past 10 million copies. Smash is up to like 23 million. Link's Awakening, which in of itself is a remake to begin with, sold 1 million copies the year after it was released with no further marketing whatsoever. It just sold 1 million copies, 1.1 to be specific. And what's crazy is that all these numbers I mentioned, for all these old games, for all these ports, are in line with the stuff Nintendo did put out that was new. Clubhouse Games is at like 3 million. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which, if you think about it, Breath of the Wild assets plus an existing Hyrule Warriors engine, they moved 3.7 million units. Mario Kart Home Circuit moved 1.27 million, even at its $100 MSRP. So what really the numbers, I guess, are saying here is, hey, Nintendo can be frugal and still do insanely well. They don't need an entirely new AAA game at all times. So Super Mario Party just kind of throwing itself out there is all they need. And that thing's going to sell millions more now. And like it's funny because I don't think anyone really like pays attention to that. Like there's this trial with Epic and Apple going on right now, right? Where Epic says Apple should let them do their, put in-app payments. Apple says, no, it has to go through us, and we take a 30% cut. It's this whole thing. But because it involves gaming, all these documents and market research and things that shouldn't be out in the world from all the various game companies are now part of the trial and are now on record. And one document that struck me as kind of interesting was Microsoft's competitor analysis, a company that does very much believe you need new AAA games at all times because that's just how their market works. PlayStation's sort of similar. But they expected Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, Bayonetta 3. They thought those would all come out last year because that's what Nintendo would need to keep themselves afloat. Instead, Nintendo gave us some spin-offs, some ports, and they're still making the most money they've ever made. Granted, Animal Crossing's a big part of that. The pandemic's a big part of that.
So proving that Microsoft doesn't... So kind of showing that Microsoft doesn't know.
No. It's more like it's
they
not.
don't understand
It's
Nintendo's
more.
game?
I wouldn't say they don't know what they're talking about. I think it's more they underestimate, as I think everyone does, just how powerful Nintendo just regurgitating its existing content can be. Whether it's ports, whether it's old games.
Except Jason.
No.
Jason never
I
underestimates
didn't think it was as strong until I started looking at the number. And Microsoft document came out from a year ago. Like, I'm just looking at what the numbers are saying. I'm not saying I'm having an epiphany here that no one else realized. I'm just saying I think a year ago, when Nintendo's lineup looked so low and bleak, everyone's like, oh, well, they'll sell some evergreens and they'll probably be okay. But to have the highest profit ever, like it clearly, to be able to do something like Super Mario Party where they don't need to make a sequel, even though we probably want a sequel, like that I think is kind of the interesting takeaway from the financials here. And it sort of shapes what, it kind of makes their lineup make sense. Because now, having these numbers and seeing what they're doing with Mario Party, like, I feel like their release calendar, it's not in the way that we previously, after the Nintendo Direct, we were like, oh, these seem like stopgaps. Like Nintendo, I remember making the point, Nintendo doesn't have very many first-party games from their internal teams. The internal teams are either doing ports, like Skyward Sword, they're updating existing games with new assets. Final Con Detective Club, they're just taking that entire concept and everything and just reskinning it, essentially. It seemed like even the quote-unquote like fresher games like New Pokemon Snap or Mario Golf, those are all being handled externally. And it's kind of like, oh, maybe there's just pandemic issues, or maybe they're having some financial, or not financial, but like work from home woes and like this sort of thing. And now I'm kind of like, well, no, maybe they just realize they don't need to have them all at once. Like the big guns will come. And when they do, they're going to make a huge splash and probably continue to sell for years on end. I mean, Breath of the Wild is still selling millions 4 years later. But for now, like in this moment, they can just sort of do stuff, just like, here's something we already released. Here's something you played on a different system. And for Nintendo, maybe not for fans, but for Nintendo, it's an easy win. It makes a ton of money, and it makes the immediate lineup of their kind of small-scale projects just suddenly seem much more logical, I guess. So that's kind of what I think like the takeaway for me with the financials was, at least. It's just like, we know Mario Kart keeps selling and stuff, but like the degree at which every old thing is still doing so well, like Nintendo, as long as they keep churning out those hardware sales and getting people to buy Switches, they can ride this out for so long. and it's not something they could quite do with other systems. Like the Wii had I think attach rate of like 8 games per person, but it fizzled out towards the end. The Switch isn't fizzling out, and its attach rate's currently only at like 6. So there's potential there to get more games into more people's hands using what they already have. Yeah, so it kind of sets the stage for other news Nintendo had, like the surprise announcement of Game Builder Garage, which, is a smaller project. Did you guys see this announcement when they randomly on a Wednesday afternoon just tweeted out with no fanfare?
I did.
What did you think of it? Do you want to explain it?
I did.
Either of you want to explain what exactly it is to our dear listeners?
I wasn't even sure. It was like, it took me a second to realize it was an official Nintendo thing. I think the first thing I saw actually was the little, I guess, character they have, the little square face character. I'm like, he looks familiar, like I've seen him somewhere. I think it was in Nintendo Labo. Mm-hmm. I think he's like controllable somewhere.
He's like the little guy when you use Toy-Con Garage, which this thing riffs on. He's the little dude who is your interactive guy when you play your games. Like he's the actual protagonist of your games.
So Imran Khan, a video game journalist that I follow, he actually stated that when he was hearing about this game, it was being referred to internally as Labo 05. So that's probably why that makes sense.
Yeah, and when I was saying how like all that financial mumbo jumbo I ran through about reusing old stuff, how it sets the stage. I mean, this thing is reuse Labo assets. That's all it is. It's cool in that you get to build your own games, but they did this already with Toy-Con Garage. The difference with those is you need cardboard accessories to do all your programming and stuff. Here, they just swapped it out for a more familiar and baked into the Switch interface of controllers. But it's kind of the same thing. I mean, even the way it's divided into 2 modes. There's lesson mode, where it will teach you how to do programming and logic, which is very much like the pre-baked stuff that came with Labo Garage mode. And then there's free programming, where you could just run wild and do what you want. It's very much Labo. It is Labo 05, like you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that Nintendo's finally doing this on a more intricate scale. Kind of like, we got... I mean, the biggest comparison point is obviously like Little Big Planet. But I mean, the main difference being that Little Big Planet had like a whole campaign built around it and also had these tools. But this one seems to lean more towards, we want to teach the kids closer to what it actually is like to develop a game. It's more in line with actually a lot of the programs they use in schools to teach programming. Like the same kind of like box system to drag little things, nodes to other things. That's pretty much how
literally
it is. But Little Big Planet also had some of that, but it was definitely more... I guess it was more in-game, I guess I should say. Because you literally had to move Sackboy around and get his little poppet tool, I think is what it was called, and have him do all that in kind of a slower way. But, you were able to achieve everything. I mean, people literally created a working, like, Windows OS system that allowed you to boot up Paint and draw. And not even mentioning like Dreams, like they're essentially the game that came after for Media Molecule that pretty much lets you make any kind of game you could think of. And it's pretty ridiculous. People have created a really good like Sonic Adventure 2 like remake of I think it was like the jungle level where you play as Sonic. Like it's ridiculous. But this, the Nintendo side of it, and it looks like what you can make with it is pretty impressive as well. I don't know, it looks cool, but I don't think I'm gonna get it just because I always get excited about these things and I never make anything.
Yeah,
so I'm just gonna
in some ways your comparison to Little Big Planet's interesting, but the thing I kept looking at is this is like a expanded Mario Maker almost. I mean, obviously it comes from Toy-Con Garage and it spins out of that, and the similarities are, I mean, like literally the interface is the same. They just put characters for every input you can do, call a little node on, to your point about nodes a minute ago. But like the way it's structured is more Mario Maker in that they give you a toolbox and then you go and see what people make with it, and that's the extent of it. I mean, Mario Maker even included some baked-in levels, and I think Nintendo's going to have some baked-in pre-made stuff for you to use in lesson mode, but it's very less Little Big Planet and very more Mario Maker. I mean, even the way that they're now finally. Like, what the biggest pain point with Toy Con Garage is you could not ever actually download anyone else's creations. This takes a cue from Mario Maker in that you can browse creations, download creations, use a code to share creations, and then actually peek behind the curtain at the mechanics of the creation and then riff on those mechanics yourself, which is straight out Mario Maker.
And this is a physical release only?
I don't know if it's physical only, but whatever it is, however you choose to get, however they make you get.
From what I've seen, it looks
is it?
like it
That
is.
doesn't make any sense. There's no reason it should be.
I mean, half of the things they release like that don't make any sense. I mean, Labo
kind of, yeah.
I could see making
Ring Fit
sense,
less
but Ring Fit Adventure, heck no. That
Yeah.
should not have been.
But yeah,
physical
it's
only.
whatever this ends up being, it is $30, which is not bad price-wise. But yeah, I'm just glad they had online sharing, because like the thing about I remember when Toy Con Garage was a thing, and Toy Con Garage VR, where like people were making some really cool stuff, and you just had to like see a video of it. Like there was no way to experience any of it, and I wouldn't necessarily bust out a cardboard piano again just to try how someone turned it into like a tool to make a marionette dance or something. But the VR ones in particular seemed like something that would have been cool to be able to try. So
Did you say Mario?
yeah, like a puppet, like marionette. Marionette. You're right, marionette. It's spelled marionette.
I thought you were making a Mario pun.
Been. You know, at one point there was actually going to be a Mario game that was codenamed Marionette, not Marionette, and it was on an E3 list of
Oh, like a female Mario?
No. It was like 2002 or 3, I think, and it was on Nintendo's release calendar at E3 in their press packet. Marionette. And it was some sort of puppeteering Mario game. No one ever saw it. It never like surfaced in any capacity. They just had the name on a list of games, and then it was gone. It's kind of like Mario 128, where it's like talked about but never really was a thing. But yeah, so that's probably where I got my mispronunciation for all these years.
Did you ever play Puppeteer on PS3, Angel?
I did. I played it in 3D. The game was awesome.
Yes, a Mario game like that would be.
It wasn't
pretty
wasn't the hardest game ever, but it was amazing to look at for sure. Recommend it for anyone that played. I don't know who made it.
It was first party, wasn't it?
I remember recently
I think
learning.
it was Studio Japan.
I think it was here where you mentioned it was like, oh yeah, they made this and then I'm like, what? They made that too? What else did they make? I'm probably gonna have the same reaction again.
Studio Japan. What else did they make?
Studio Japan.
They
That's
did.
also familiar.
I mean, they did
Yeah,
Loco.
besides
If
Puppeteer.
it's them that did Puppeteer, they did
Apparently.
Loco Roco. They did Patapon.
Oh, they did that.
They did.
Oh, what the?
Okay, we should
oh,
be
okay,
surprised
alright,
that Patapon and Loco
I was
Roco are the
surprised
same
by
level.
their
They look the
variety.
same. Yeah.
Yeah,
They did
yeah,
all
but
they
I
did
mean, I
all the
really
quirky-
like.
I think they did. Ape Escape.
Patapon.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They did all the quirky.
That sounds.
They were,
right.
and now actually, Sony's shutting them down, which is sad. Because I thought that was they're Sony's shifting resources in some ways, and it seems like towards more blockbuster releases on some level. But yeah, Studio Japan. I don't know if they're fully shutting it down, but a lot of people all left at once, very recently, which kind of sucks because I always thought like I remember when PSP was first coming out, I thought Loco Roco and Patapon and all that were like really kind of clever handheld first ideas that had like an air of kind of Nintendo-y like style to them, but were also they're very very much their own thing. It was like a neat little like carved out corner they did of like the Japanese game market, and yet now that studio's gone.
Yeah, they did a good job of making it feel like wow, this is a real PSP game.
And they
It felt
lever
like, the same way that some Nintendo games feel like, oh, could have only been on Nintendo. Like these really felt like these were PS. Like they made.
yeah,
the PSP.
it's very much how
Patapon and Loco
Astro
Roco.
is with PS5 with Playroom, which actually might also be Studio Japan. Now that I think
Yeah.
about it, I'm not sure.
It would make sense just given the quirky. I mean, yeah, the animations kind of remind me of Puppeteer for
Yeah,
sure.
it's probably
Yeah.
them. But anyway, we digressed a little.
It's not like we have Google or anything.
No, it's not like we
but-
could just look this up. It says speculating wildly with no one able to correct us because this is a recording. But yeah, it's hopefully those folks land on their feet and keep making some quirky stuff like that. But in terms of Game Builder Garage, that's what it's called, right? I almost forgot the name. Game Builder Garage, yeah. I was gonna say that the whole project, like to your point, Angel, I don't know if I would get it. I mean, Kevin, are you into this sort of level of creativity? Are you gonna buy this?
No, even back in the Little Big Planet days, I would make terrible levels. I was more of a just I forgot what they would call it. I know Dreams is called Dream Surfing, where you just go through random levels. I forgot what Little Big Planet was, but that's pretty much how I would just play other people's
Right.
things.
That's me with Mario Maker. Like, I initially was thinking I would not buy this at all, and I was like, well, actually, if there's ways to just try other people's experiences,
Well, actually, I buy everything. So
not true. I don't own Pikmin 3 Deluxe or Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity.
Because you already have a version of them.
Not if Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. That's a sequel.
Well, you tried to
Oh,
demo.
you're
I did try
right,
the demo.
right.
True. I try everything they put out.
Oh man, my brother reminded me the other day. I completely forgot this happened. Remember E3?
Yeah,
You know what I'm
no,
getting
we
at?
can move on.
Hyrule Warriors,
Okay,
you
so
were
I'm
playing
gonna. All right, are we gonna tell the story? Are we
Oh,
gonna tell the story?
man.
Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, you
I haven't
might as well
heard the
say
story,
it
so-
because
It wasn't E3. It was
I just
Comic
kind
Con.
of remember the
It was not E3.
punchline.
It was Comic Con. It was summer 2014.
Comic Con.
I
There you go.
believe.
You're right. Comic Con.
It's seared in my memory. It's like, do you remember where you were when like JFK was shot and 9/11 happened? This is seared in my memory. I was playing the Hyrule Warriors demo, and the guy who was guiding the demo told me, all right, here's the controls you need to know. Here's how to attack. Here's how to, do this, do that. What he did not tell me is unlike, or borrowing from Zelda games, I guess you could say, there was Z targeting. He just told me, here's how you attack, here's how you defend. So I was playing through the whole demo without Z targeting.
Most people would figure
Now,
this out on their own.
I just
though,
listened
but,
to what
Jason-
he said
Jason-
the controls were, and I'll admit I'm at fault. But I just, was playing through and not Z targeting. And it got to a boss fight, and I was attacking the boss, but I was not Z targeting. And I died because I was not Z targeting and not actually, And then the Nintendo rep's like, you were the first person to ever play this demo during Comic-Con that died. And I was like, what? And of course, at this point, Angel and Elvis and everyone else was
That's so
behind me
funny, 'cause
watching.
Yeah, my brother and I were
and
there.
it
so
was
I was
the
like,
most
yep, of course, it had to be
embarrassing
Jason.
moment of my life. No, but it was like he literally, the dude was just like
This guy runs a Nintendo
dude,
podcast.
yeah, hosted a Nintendo podcast, playing a game, and the Nintendo dude didn't tell me controls I didn't think of checking, and then I died, and he immediately was like, "Wow, you suck," and I'm like, "Oh, thanks, Nintendo man." It was so bad. Yeah,
I mean, he's not wrong.
he's not wrong, but to
it
hear
was-
him say
was
it,
funny, but
because
yeah.
demos. And the funny thing about that, is so I go to E3.
Nintendo skill. I mean, Jason's skill.
Well, what's funny
validated
is I
by
go to
Jason.
E3 the following year
Well-
or Comic-Con or whatever, and I was very self-aware of, am I playing the demo good enough for the people behind me in line? I never had that thought before Hyrule Warriors, but after that incident, I was very conscious of, am I playing it right, quote unquote? Only for a year or two, and then I lost it.
Oh,
but it's just
man,
I was
that's
oh
hilarious.
god, this is what I just gave him a random town business card. I can't be bad at this now. It was very much a thing briefly. I still blame him on some level for not telling me about Z targeting because Warrior games don't.
I mean, I probably would have pressed every button to see what they do.
Well,
I feel
I
like
was
whenever I play a
listening to
demo, I almost never even listen to what they're telling me because I would assume they're
See,
telling
I
me
assumed
wrong.
he was telling
it's
me
like
right.
that Parks
I know
and
they're
Rec
not-
when Ron
I know their
Swanson
job,
tells the guy at that Best Buy, "Oh, can I help you?" And Ron Swanson goes, "I know more than you." That's Angel with
Yeah,
those kinds of
yeah.
demos.
Yeah, that's how I feel about
Well,
every
now
demo
since
kiosk.
I
But
felt the same way.
I mean, we are. This is Jason. I mean, we're talking about the same person that said, you know what? I'm gonna play Smash Brothers
Yep.
with the Wiimote
Nope,
sideways
incorrect.
because that is
Wiimote
what
and nunchuck.
God intended.
Not sideways, you madman. I need analog. Come on. But yes, for 6 to 8 months after, maybe a year after Brawl came out, I kept going, no, I'm going to play with the Wiimote and Nunchuck because that's how God intended it. I was like, Nintendo designed it with this controller. Sakurai made it for this controller. I'm going to play it with this controller. And then I just got walloped for a year.
I'm gonna use the motion.
I did not
Smash
do that.
attack.
I had limits. I will say, I think I've redeemed myself
Wow.
in the time since. I remember at the Game Awards after party, the night Smash Bros. Ultimate came out. Nintendo had some kiosks set up. Which, by the way, really weird thing. They took YouTube took over a nightclub in downtown LA. They had Madion or Madion, however you say him, the French DJ performing. Meanwhile, Nintendo's like, we're over here in the corner with 8 Smash kiosks, and the crowd was, I guess because it's the Game Awards, pretty decently split between Smash and Madion. But anyway, yeah, I to redeem myself, I killed it at that kiosk. I hung out there for an hour and I won every single match. So I hope that somehow redeems me.
You're
in
one
some
of
way.
those guys.
What?
You're one of those people that just.
Well, I was chatting with.
You just stayed at that kiosk for an hour.
Well, because what else was I gonna do by myself at an after party? and more to the point.
Co-mingle with people.
Well, yeah, more to the point. I know the Nintendo guy who was running the kiosk, so I was just hanging out with him basically. But it's the one Angel that we see at events all the time. So we were actually catching up. But anyway, I don't remember his name, but you know him if you saw him.
Kit?
No, not Kit. Yeah, the
Oh,
LA rep.
yeah.
One of them. Yeah. Yeah, we know
Yeah.
an LA rep, we know a San Diego rep, and that's it. Although, I think the San Diego rep moved out of San Diego. Either way, yeah, so my game skills are very questionable is the takeaway. But my thoughts on games, I feel are a little more solid. And I had two schools of thought about Game Builder Garage, and specifically like what like it. So like what it represents. Like first, one of my favorites. Nintendo now gives up on an idea, right? Toy-Con Garage, super creative, clever ideas out there. Tied to cardboard, tied to Labo. You know, Labo sold okay, but not great. So I think Nintendo saw an opportunity here to expand on the idea with something that's more readily available. And then they even went above and beyond. Like all you need is a standard Switch console, but for designing, you can actually plug in a USB keyboard and mouse, which is pretty cool. But more to the point, you know, they made something that was more niche, more accessible. So that's one thing that Game Builder Garage has in its favor. The second school of thought, I think, goes back to the whole frugal thing I've been saying this episode, which, you know, this isn't anything new or like not new. I mean, it similar to how a game like Famicom Detective Club is using existing foundation with a fresh coat of paint. All Nintendo's really doing here is taking the existing game building tools and making them work with different inputs. Like, it seems to be the same engine as Toy-Con. It developed by the same team as Labo. It means even when they're selling it at that $30 MSRP we're talking about, it's still a pretty good return on investment for them. Because, frankly, nowhere near the majority of Switch owners, not a third, not even a quarter, not even a fifth, probably bought Labo or touched Labo or ever tried Labo. So for them, it's an entirely new experience. For folks who did try Labo, it's kind of like a semi-sequel expansion of sorts. It's very much like Super Mario Party. You know, the update works on many levels. This release does too. So that was kind of my high level, oh, this makes sense, Game Builder Garage assessment. And it comes out on June 11th, which is not very far away. It's actually 3 weeks after Miitopia, which kind of funny to me because I feel like conceptually these are 2 pages from the same playbook. I mean, like, obviously, in terms of Nintendo is frugal, which has been my personal thesis for this episode, Miitopia is straight up a 3DS port, so there's no doubt there. It's one from late in the system's life, wherein, like, a lot of people probably didn't experience it. But I mean, like, even more personally, you know, we were talking about how, like, we don't necessarily, Kevin, you and I don't necessarily want to, like, customize things, we just want to play existing things. Like, Miitopia's big hook is also this idea of, like, creativity that maybe, at least for me, is more than I want to do. Because it turns out, as far as Switch ports go, Miitopia had a secret little Bowser's Fury style edition hidden away in there that Nintendo did not talk about until a demo came out, and then they're like, surprise, and it's an insanely detailed Mii editor. Have you guys seen any of the Miis coming out of the Miitopia demo? It's ridiculous.
I saw pictures of some, but since I didn't even know it was released at that point or even announced, I thought it was just like Photoshop versions of people make detailed faces, because I'm like, oh, these are not
but they are,
faces.
And that's what's crazy. It's so... They, like, stuck a Mario Paint editor inside the Mii editor, kind of. Like, you can't actually be like, I want to use this paintbrush and do this pixel by pixel, but the way you can manipulate everything has led to, like, Shrek, Squidward, any number of game characters. Someone made a Fortnite V-Buck, like, card, you know, like the gift card you get like Walgreens or something, you scratch off the back. They made a Mii's face that, and it looks like it. Like, it looks just like it. Someone else made Starry Night by Van Gogh. Like, it's insane how much detail there is. And I don't think it's necessarily going to convince me to buy the game, because I, again, am not that creative and don't want to be that creative. But, like, it's crazy to look at. Like, there's a link, we'll put a link in the blog post to, like, all the different examples. I think Nintendo Life was the one who compiled it, but it's just, like, it's nuts. Like, it's really impressive. And from Nintendo's perspective, at least, I think it's a really clever way to generate additional interest in Miitopia, right? I mean, like, first off, the way they just sort of casually dropped it in the demo without saying anything and then let kind of the internet have at it. Like, that's some good word of mouth marketing, kind of viral marketing. Like, this thing was announced. It, you know, people were like, okay, it's a port 3DS game. And then suddenly, oh, wow, look at all these Miis. And it was, like, spreading across the gaming world, at least pretty quickly. But having it tie into amounts to being Mii 2.0 at a time when, like, early to mid 2000 nostalgia is starting to ramp up, that seems pretty smart. And I think a lot of folks who maybe really enjoyed making Miis when they were younger, you know, back on the Wii, perhaps they didn't necessarily feel compelled to buy Miitopia. It's just like, oh, it's those things I made when I was a kid, but now, like, they have a story. But instead, what they maybe are seeing is, oh, it's like a cooler version of that. I want to try that. That's way more detailed, potentially. And, you know, it's like, it's a big upgrade of Mii's. And I think, likewise, those who did play Miitopia on 3DS and perhaps really loved the way you can make a story yours with your own Mii's, here's a reason to double dip. They might be like, wow, I can go even more berserk than I did the first time. Because the game's basically a playable Mad Lib. So if you can now have an enhanced vocabulary, so to speak, in the game of, what to fill in the blanks with. Like, that's just going to motivate people who like the first game that much more. So it's like that perfect line between updating it just enough that it can maybe get some more numbers, but not updating it too much. They have to spend a ton of money. It's very, very smart from Nintendo. And it looks ridiculous. Like, you guys should go browse the Miis. It's crazy what people have made. I don't think I'm going to buy it, though. But for those who are interested, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I imagine neither of you were chomping at the bit for Miitopia, even before the Mii thing.
You should buy it just so that you could update our Miis.
But what would I update them with? We'd have to make us look super... I mean, we could basically make lifelike photos of us at this point. But
do it, Jason.
I don't know if it's worth the full MSRP.
It's your destiny.
Well, it's sad that I'm now actually somewhat considering that, but I don't think so. I do think, though, it's worth noting, I keep going on to spiel about frugality and how, Nintendo's so clever. They can fly too close to the sun with this. I think, they haven't perfected the art, and I feel like at least having, pretty heavily lavished on praise about, look how good they are. So good they are at making money, and look how clever this approach is. It's probably worth knowing the big downside, which is, for fans who have been around the Nintendo block, who have experienced these experiences already, it's not really all rosy necessarily. Angel, I feel like this is your sticking point you've had. You didn't buy 3D World just for Bowser's Fury because you already beat 3D World. You didn't buy Pikmin 3 for the new stuff, the new scenarios, because you already beat Pikmin 3. This, right? This is a real concern for, a diehard Nintendo fan, right?
Basically, yeah.
And I think what's kind of interesting is there's sort of... it's a small example, but the example I gravitate towards is what happened right in tandem with all this news we've been discussing, which was Animal Crossing New Horizons put out its latest free update. It's the first one to lap itself since the game came out. And yeah, it's the side of the coin that, Angel, you kept saying when we talk about these ports, and that is, you can be frugal, but you can also have that be detrimental. And I think... So basically the game's May update, it brings back game events from last spring. So you have May Day where you explore the maze. It has International Museum Day where you go to the stamp scavenger hunt thing in the museum and collect all the little stamps. It has Wang Season where you help take photos. That's all fine and dandy. Annual events are obviously Animal Crossing's thing. And Nintendo claims they slightly tweaked how they work. So maybe the hedges are laid out differently in the maze or whatever. But that's it. There's no new characters, there's no new spots in town, there's no new shop upgrades, nothing. It's a year, and Nintendo's just like, hey, here's that thing you did before, but now again. And it really just felt like one big metaphor for the risk Nintendo's going to face with their current focus of this, frugality thing. Because, yeah, Animal Crossing will sell to new players. It's slowed down a tad. It's no longer going to pass Mario Kart to be the number one game, but it's still doing really big numbers. And, every news story about what's new in Animal Crossing, even if it's just a tweaked maze, is still going to give it a little extra push into the zeitgeist and get some attention. But if you've been playing for a year, what's in it for you? What's the equivalent of Super Mario Party's Online, or Miitopia's fancier Mii editor, or Game Builder Garage's, new input options? Or, there isn't... is Nintendo essentially leaving you behind? You, perhaps the most loyal fan... having played everything for the entire past year, having bought everything on the Wii U like you did, Angel, is there a risk of being alienated? And I do think in Animal Crossing's case, my metaphor does eventually fall apart if you look at the game as almost like a soft reboot. I can't believe this is the third reference I'm making. If you look at Animal Crossing as a new Super Mario Brothers type of game, where they're sort of scaling it back and they're going to rebuild on top of it with sequels over however many generations, sure. Then I guess the stripped backness, the fact that they're not necessarily going to have Brewster come back or have new versions of the shop or that sort of thing, I guess that makes sense. I guess I can understand that. But at the same time, maybe that actually makes the metaphor stronger, because Nintendo's basically saying, you played all this, and now we're going to do it again, and either you're with us or you're not. But just so you know, we're doing it all again. We're going through that same progression.
On one hand, yeah, we were playing it pretty hard, maybe the first 2 or 3 months. I don't remember when exactly I fell off of it. Not because I got bored or anything. I got to the, I guess the end game where you pretty much just have full reign of the island and you just do as you want. But, that kind of slowed down for me just because it takes so long to terraform, which, does make me appreciate the people that did go through all that effort. And I do plan on finishing that one day, so kind of in a weird way. Like, yeah, it's kind of disappointing to not see some new things coming out, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad as well. Because it's like, oh, I actually missed out on a few of the holidays because I was just busy with something else. Like, I guess maybe some of those specific events will... Well, I know some of the items have been changing. Like, I mean, I don't know if they're going to keep up with that. Like, some of the stuff for Easter, like, they added a bunch of new stuff. But, you know, it is in a loop at some point.
Even for the May update, I think they added some new items. Like, they did some stuff with cheese. Like, that's my whole thought. They did things with cheese. Like, they're cheese things. But, to your point, yeah.
But in a nutshell, like, I'm kind of okay with it just because it's like, I don't think I necessarily want an incentive to dive back into it because for the same reasons I didn't even get Pokemon Snap. Like, let it chill out so that I don't feel... So now it's like the opposite. Now it's like, you know what? Yeah, take your time. Make it feel like I'm not missing out on anything. That way, when I jump back, it's like, cool. Like, I didn't miss out on too much. I don't feel that behind. Because, you know, if too many new things do come out when I'm not playing, I feel it's going to make it that much harder to get back into it. I only jump back in just to, like, grab those Mario pipes just so I could just have them. Yeah, I don't know. It's
interesting because if you want to continue this idea that I sort of did of Animal Crossing as a metaphor for how Nintendo treats its lineup now, you're basically making the pitch of your favorite phrase of, you know, there's only so much time in the world and yada yada. Like, there's something to be said that if Nintendo's gonna, like, kind of take a break, that's, you know, money saved, time spent on other things. In your case, you're talking, you know, at the top how you're only really playing Smash Bros. And Monster Hunter. So there are advantages, even for some Nintendo fans, of kind of having a breather. Where, yeah, there's some stuff, but nothing's very crucial. Like, maybe you played it before, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe a game you already own can be kind of reintroduced in a new way, like Super Mario Party. You can play it with different friends you can play it with before. Like, it's interesting. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong. Like, is Nintendo doing the right approach, the wrong approach? But it is interesting how, like, the way Animal Crossing is being handled is basically the micro version of how Nintendo treats its entire games library right now, and how each fan will interpret that differently. Some will be really mad because they did all that terraforming. Some will be like you or like me who are like, it's fine. And then some will just be like super into every minor tweak and change and want to play every single thing. And, you know, they have the audience range now where I think they can comfortably have all three of those. And some people are going to be super mad. There's a stupid tweet that went viral where a guy's like, oh, well, if you take out all the ports from the Switch, and if you take out all the, like, not big games, quote unquote, there's only like 6 games on the Switch. It's like, all right, that's what you care about, but I bet you there's someone who has like 12 of those games and thinks they're way better variety beyond the 6 that you think are the key 6 or whatever. So, like, it's definitely going to be a personal thing. But it is interesting how we're not in an era, even with Animal Crossing, where we're like, within Animal Crossing, I mean, where we're just like starved for something new. There is always something kind of new. This isn't the Wii U. The question is, this isn't, you know, the end of the Wii where it's like one game a year. It's just, you know, where do you land on that spectrum of, like, engagement with Nintendo and what you want out of them, or engagement with Animal Crossing and what you want out of them? They're all kind of the same. So, because, like, even you and me, and I imagine, Kevin, you're on a whole different scale sort of than us. Like, I'm like, I'll buy this, I'll buy that. Andrew, like, I'm good with what I have, and Kevin, I don't know where you stand, somewhere in between, maybe?
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, so we're, but also we're older now, so I feel like collectively we're more, like, mature about this than, like, you know, a kid who maybe was young and got Miitopia and then is now having a Switch and is a little older. Is like, I want more stuff that's not just what I played on the 3DS. But, you know, again, it's that range of audience. So, just something to stew on between now and, you know, our next episode. Since honestly, unless you guys have anything else, that's it. We covered it all. We covered the entire internet's worth of Nintendo news.
Yeah, you could almost say we
sure did. And yeah,
and the small pictures.
Lots of pictures. Lots of pictures. A real
lot of
picture
pictures.
But yeah, we'll be back at it again in 2 weeks' time on May 23rd with whatever other tricks Nintendo has up its sleeve. I think the investor Q&A transcript should be out by them, and that'll be one of them. So there may be some interesting tidbits about Nintendo's thinking or plans for IP expansion or who knows what. So we'll have that along with impressions of what we've been playing. And of course, in the lead up to that, we will have a new Quarantine Chronicles coming your way on May, I want to say 16th, whatever next Sunday is. With 100% fewer sales numbers than this show. That, I think we can promise you. So, yeah, to make sure you don't miss... might be a twist.
I might sneak in a sale number.
You have to tune in to find out, I guess, guys. But yeah, to make sure you don't miss it and, you know, see just how many numbers Kevin will spout. You can follow us on Twitter at Ram Nintendo. We'll send out a tweet when it's live. You can subscribe to us on all the podcasting apps of your choice. We're on literally all of them: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. Probably ones I've never even heard of. We're probably there too. We're also on YouTube at RamNintendo.com. And individually we're on Twitter. I'm JSR7. Angel is Wero, WEIRO_O. Kevin is KVN Gomi. I think that's it. Kevin, last final words?
Rest in peace, Giant Bomb East.